Hi everyone, this is Monsef Afkar, and thank you so much for joining us in this new call of Your Divine Uniqueness. And as always, happy to have you with us on the live call, and also those who happy to connect with those of you later on will be later listening or watching the replay. And also very excited, very happy that Karen K is back on the show. She joined us. She joined us a few times in the past few years, and I really love her energy. It's there is so much wisdom, so much inspiring guidance, and at the same time there is this fun energy and magical energy that she embodies, and also that she shares through her message and everything that she creates, whether readings, books, or oracle decks that she created, and for those of you who are new to her, she is a fairy and mermaid whisperer and best-selling Hay House author. And the subject today is fairy whispering and oracle readings. So she will be sharing about like the connection to the fairy realm, how to open the door to that, and also how can we co-create with that realm, and like in terms of connection and also manifesting in our daily life. And then after that we'll have a Q&A where you can ask Karen your questions. So she will be doing live fairy readings, and as always, for that you can raise your hand on Zoom by pressing reactions, then raise hand, and on the phone by pressing *9, and also you can type your question on the chat boxes on Zoom and on YouTube. And also she will be talking about her new book, Fairy Whispering, so stay tuned for that. Karen, welcome back to the show. Happy to have you with us today.
Yay, thank you so much for inviting me back on again. I adore this show and I just love the space that you hold virtually. All of the speakers are always super interesting. So I feel very honoured and privileged to be one of them and to be here with you all now. And I'm super excited to share about fairy whispering with meditation and some practical ways that we can co-create with the fairies, and also some fairy oracle card readings as well.
Yeah, beautiful. Also the honor is ours to have you with us on the show. And yes, so why you called it fairy whispering? Is it because of the way they connect to us and they speak to us?
Well, the fairy whispering label, if you like, came about after a TV appearance that I did back in, I think it was late 2018 or early 2019. And the presenter just called me and the people that I was with fairy whisperers. I was with two other fairy friends. We've all had fairy experiences in our lives. And it just seems to be a really good way of describing what we do. And basically, it's not technically whispering like like this, but it is a form of communication, and it's a two-way communication. Very often that can be telepathically, or literally you can hear, sometimes I hear physical fairy voices and materializations. Very often they'll appear as points of light, and it is the description. Fairy whispering is that, it's exactly that. It's a communication with the fairies, and that's what I'll just say my book now. So it's Fairy Whispering. I don't know if that's back to front or not. And it's,
Yes, it is.
oh yay, it's 111 magical practices for connecting with the fairies, and it includes meditations, visualizations, spells, rituals, incantations, affirmations, creating charms. So it's all the different ways that, or many different ways. I know that there are more than 111 because I've got more than 111, but that's what went in the book. Although when I was writing the book and I came to chapter 70, it dried up, and I was like, Oh, okay. What happens now? Because my book is called 111 Magical Practices and I've only got 70. I was like, come on, fairies. And they just laugh as they do. And they just said, we're not going to give you everything at once. We're going to kind of drip feed it to you. So you have to get out in nature every single day. And every time you go out, we're going to gift you another way of connecting with us. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, wonderful. And yeah, everyone, you can find the link to the book. It's on the live events page, replay page later, and also on YouTube description, the video description. And yeah, so it's 111 ways. So can you maybe tell us, maybe in the beginning, how can we approach them? Is there a different way compared to spirit guides or other beings that we can connect with the fairy realm?
Yeah, so we can work with, I mean, I personally work with all of my guides. I have a team, definitely. I've got a team of funny fairies and magical fairies that I work with, and also my own spirit guides, my ancestral guides, and some angelic guides as well. So they all kind of come in for this work because the objective is to raise the vibration and to put our focus back into the earth, because fairies are guardians of the earth. That's what they are primarily. And there's a lot of energy and attention going on the earth right now. So they're like, I'm not the only fairy whisperer. There are many, all of us can connect with fairies. It's just for whatever reason, I'm kind of in this position where I'm sharing, and I love to share. Although I did hide for many years, I didn't want to. And people that connect in with fairies, very often they are tend to be loners, and they can also be shy, which I was, believe it or not, for a long time. And then it just got to the point where I thought, okay, you've got to start saying yes now, Karen, because people were just asking me to do interviews and share. Um, so this, the different ways that we can connect, they're all on different levels. So some people will be very new to this, and some people might just be here out of curiosity, and some people might be learned already along this path. So in the book, you've got all these different entries that you can come in on. So you can come in as a complete beginner, and there are really beautiful, simple ways. Some of what I did when I was a little girl, when I first started my fairy experience, if you like, or that I remember with fairies in my grandmother's garden. And some of those are just really simple, natural things to do, which I did instinctively as a child. And then some of them are more kind of conscious. As we become more mature in our years and more spiritual, we want to do conscious connection with them. And sometimes we want to manifest with them, and sometimes we want to go to them for healing assistance or whatever it might be. And then some people come in from an academic side, and there is something in there for those people as well. I've had some great consultants that I've worked with that are, I want to say the word au fait in this realm, from an academic point of view. It's not really where I reside, but I have explored these avenues certainly. And they've kind of advised me, and I've consulted with them on some of the path workings that are in the book. So there is really something for everyone. It is not a children's book, although some of the things within the book you can do with your children. I know that many parents have written to me and said, oh, we're going to do some of the things like perhaps making a daisy chain charm together or something simple and light. I would never really encourage children to go too deeply into the ritual aspect of things. Unless it's something that they've grown up with. So it really is like a book for adults. Primarily, that's what it is. And it's my first fairy book. So after all these years of writing my oracle cards and writing music, finally my book is here after what feels like forever. And the timing's always perfect, and it's just such a joy. And I don't know if you saw on my Instagram page when I opened the box of my books that I saw for the first time. My friend was with me and we went into the woods, and it wasn't your conventional unboxing, let's say that. So we covered the box in leaves, and then I discovered it in the woodland, and it was, when I saw it, I just cried because I was overwhelmed with emotion at actually seeing and holding the book that I had manifested, that I had written in collaboration with the fairies. I can't take all of the credit because they definitely assisted me in this. And also the artist, because there are illustrations in the book which, when you're working with fairies, um, the artistic imagination side of things really comes in strongly. So for me, it was essential that there was art in the book as well. And I worked with an incredibly talented lady called Bonnie Hawkins, and I'd actually worked with her many years ago on my Fae magazine, which I'm the editor of, which is basically a fairy magazine, a lifestyle magazine, and it's got folklore and fashion and books and films and everything in it. And she did some artwork for that. So it was really lovely to come full circle and work with her again for this project. And she really understood. Many fairy artists are already in that phase space, so she really understood the briefs, and the it was very easy to work with her, and I'm absolutely thrilled with the results. So I do want to give a hats off to her and to honor her work, because I feel like artists need all the support right now with the AI coming in. And I just really support real living human artists. And I will only ever work with real human living artists in all my work, in my events, in my book, whatever it is. That's, for me, that's just the way I feel very passionately about that, because they are a direct channel for fairy as they're drawing, as they're painting. And sometimes it can be digital art too, that can still be channeled, but it's done by a person rather than a computer. But don't get me wrong, I love computers. They definitely have their purpose, because we wouldn't be able to talk now, would we? So I'm very grateful, but it is all about balance in everything.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like the art has a soul when it's created by
Yeah.
or challenged by a human. Um, Beautiful. Thank you so much, Karen. And you mentioned earlier about Earth going through an energetic shift, and also we feel that because we are parts of the Earth. We feel that individually and collectively. So I would love if you can talk a little bit about that, and how can we co-create with the fairy realm around that energetic shift.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Well, like you say, there is actually no separation. When we look at the earth and our connection with the earth, many of us feel very passionately about it because there is no separation. We are one with the earth. It kind of feeds us, it sustains us. So it's essential that we sustain the earth in any way that we can. And I feel like also that because fairies are the guardian spirits, the nature energy that is holding that space, that is the guardian of that space, that they are coming forward to wanting to connect with more people at this time, especially. They've connected with people all through history, but at this time, it seems to be even more prevalent. I'm hearing so many stories from people who are having the callings or the whisperings of the fairies coming to them. So it's something that, if you've got an open heart and an open mind, then you are gonna hear these whisperings. Let's just call it that, in whatever form of communication. And so we feel the earth because we are the earth. On one level, we are the earth. We might not all be conscious of that, but we certainly are. And I'm the kind of jury's out a little bit for me at the moment with the media aspect on what's going on, because whenever I tune in with the fairies, they say to me every single time, the earth is fine. The earth is absolutely fine. Obviously, we need to bring more awareness to our personal, individual impact upon the earth. And that can be on a really super practical level. For example, like what we're using in our household thing, like chemicals in the toilet or harsh chemicals in the kitchen or in any respect, and just re-looking at that, because there are very many environmental products that we can be using that we can swap out that aren't necessarily more expensive, if that's something that people need to be conscious of as well. There are ways of doing it. It just takes a little bit of extra thought. And that will have an impact, because also everything that we put down the sink and down the toilet is going into the oceans. And there might be ways to cleanse it, but ultimately it's all being recycled. So we're giving it back to ourselves. So everything that you put out is coming back in. So it's being mindful and conscious of that as well. And that's on a super practical level. Also, simple things like just picking up litter or going on a beach clean, and just doing things that treating it like it's your own backyard, because very often people think, oh, well, it's just one sweet wrapper, it's just one cigarette butt, it's just this little thing, it won't make a difference. But when you've got millions of people doing that, it definitely does make a difference. So if we can start to kind of clean up after ourselves and be more mindful. I do appreciate that probably 100% of people listening to this now will be on that path anyway, of being mindful about their environment. But it's good because we also then set an example to others, without preaching, because I'm really not into preaching at all. It's by example. So I've seen friends of mine do things and I think, oh, that's a good idea. Perhaps I'll adopt that as well. And then you just bring different things into your lifestyle and it becomes a natural way of being. So, for example, if I go out and I see a bit of litter, when on my way home, I'll just pick it up and I'll put it in the bin. It's easy. And then it's going to get recycled or whatever. So it is just taking personal responsibility rather than leaving it, oh, someone else will clean that up after me. Someone else will sort that out for me. We are that someone. And so it's about being responsible as well. And it will be noticed by the fairies. It will be noticed by them, because they can only do so much, because they're not all, well, they can, this is the thing, they can shapeshift and they can come into physical form, but generally they are spirit form, they are etheric. So they kind of need us in a way to, as much as we need them, they need us to do the physical, practical things. And it could be like campaigning for your local woodland, or doing petitions to stop trees being cut down, which is happening all over the place. And then um, we wonder why all these floodings are happening, and it is all directly associated. I'm no scientist, and I didn't mean for this talk to kind of go too much down that environmental road, but it is intrinsically, oh, can't say the word, connected. So there is no separation. So it is about taking personal responsibility. Another really beautiful thing about connecting with the fairies is that they are magical, and we can manifest with them, but it is kind of always on their terms. We have to build up this friendship, this relationship with them, which can be an instantaneous relationship, or it could be something that you build upon over many years. It's different for everyone. As I said in my book, and as I've said to you in the past, Monsef, that my connection with the fairies happened when I was a little girl. And I've always said that I was about 5 or 6, but my mum came to visit me a couple of weeks ago, and it was the first time that we'd actually spent any time alone together since I was a baby. So we had a really good talk, and she pulled out all these photographs of me in the garden with the flowers and with my grandmother. And it was, I didn't even know these photos existed. And I said, how old was I, mum? Because I look really young. And she said, yeah, you was about 2.5, 3 years old. So in my mind, I thought I was 5 or 6, but I wasn't. So my relationship that I remember with the fairies started at the age of about 2.5, 3 years old. So it goes back even more than I knew. And that was really lovely to find out. And she also told me that my grandmother believed in fairies, which kind of makes sense. But I didn't know until she told me that, or I didn't remember. And that's why my grandmother would encourage me to be outside. And she probably encouraged me to leave offerings for the fairies too. So she truly did open the fairy door for me, the metaphorical fairy door. And I've actually dedicated the book to my grandmother for doing that for me, because it's literally it's impacted my entire life. I did have a rebellious phase when I came into my teenage years, which I think many of us try to find something to rebel against. And for me, I was rebelling against fairies. So I've always been pretty quirky. And I've always, from a little girl, perceived the fairies as points of light, little almost electric points of light, penetrating through the veils in from their realm into our realm, because they live in a parallel realm. And this was natural to me. It wasn't a big deal. It was just totally natural, as if you're seeing a friend or something. It's like, oh, hey, you don't think, wow, that's weird. I never thought it was weird. I never thought it was strange. It was just natural. However, when I got to a teenager, I started to question it. And I thought, what if these lights that I'm seeing are not fairies? What if these lights mean that there's something wrong with my eyes? So I took myself to the opticians, and I didn't say, hey, I think I'm seeing fairies, because they may have locked me up back then. I just said, can you check my vision, please? Can you check my eyesight? It's just a standard eye test. And I had, yeah, 20/20 vision, perfect vision, nothing wrong with my eyes at all. And for me, that was confirmation that what I was seeing was fairy lights. I already knew it, to be honest, but I just needed that qualification, or I can't know what the word is. The words keep flying off me. I needed that confirmation from a professional medical person. In this instance, it was the optician, to assure me that my eyes were fine, and that affirmed to me that I was seeing fairy lights. And so I accepted them by getting a fairy tattoo on my, oh, I think it's on that shoulder, on my left shoulder. Uh, a very mature Tinkerbell she is now. And yeah, that was my way of kind of honoring the fairies. And it was also like a rite of passage for myself as well. And yeah, that was it. That was the little blip. And then they were with me even when I was rebelling. They were still there laughing at me, and um not laughing at me in a horrible way, but just laughing because they knew that I knew they were real, and the fact that I was questioning it amused them greatly. And yeah, so then they've literally just been with me my entire life right up to this moment, and I know moving forward they'll still be with me. I've opened that fairy door, or my grandmother certainly helped to open it for me, and there it's hard to close that door again once you open it. And that is something I also talk about in the book, because there is a section on fairy doors. Many of us associate fairies with fairy doors, and lots of people have fairy doors in their home. And I remember in my first TV interview, I advised people not to have fairy doors in their home. And I got a lot of emails from a lot of fairy door makers saying, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I said, look, I'm not saying don't have fairy doors, because I've got fairy doors, and they're fun, they're beautiful. But initially, if you've got the option, don't bring them in your home straight away. Have them outside your home, because once you have them in your home, a fairy door is a portal. It's like, hey, fairies, come in, but it's also anything can come in through that portal. So when you're placing a fairy door with intent, and you're doing it in, a protective way, and you're putting your intention that only it is explained in the book properly, but about putting your pure intention into that, and that only beings of love and light and high vibration may cross over the threshold of that fairy door. And even then, things still go missing. Like this little fairy key necklace that I'm wearing, this little gold necklace, this went missing 4 years ago in my own home. And I always know where it is. It's just like, I just always know where it was. And then it just disappeared. And I looked for it literally 4 years in everywhere that I could think of. And then it was well, only a couple of months ago, I just had this vision in my mind of the key necklace in a sparkly bag that I have looked in a million times, not a million times, but several times over the course of 4 years in the pocket. And then I just had a vision of the key in the pocket, the front pocket of that bag. And I immediately went there. I didn't even look. I just put my hand in and the key was in my hand. And then I could just hear this like telepathic giggling, and they just said it's time for you to wear the key again, because this key for me symbolizes the ability to open that fairy door. Now, we don't all need a key. We are the metaphorical key anyway. We are that key ourselves, which doesn't need to be external. But it represented something to me and it was special to me. And yeah, I totally believe that they took it and that eventually they gave it back to me. But it did take 4 years. So when you have a fairy door in your home, you can expect things to go missing. They love sparkly things. They're a bit like magpies in that respect. And just to be mindful of that. And also just to expect the unexpected, because you are literally they've got a reputation for a reason, let's put it that way. However, I do also feel that they've had a very bad press over the years. They were demonized by the church, and this is also where the rumor or the saying comes that they say that fairies do not like iron, and the reason is because church bells are made from iron. So whenever they heard the church bells, they would be fearful because they knew that the people that were ringing the bells didn't necessarily like them, so they would flee. So it isn't about the iron itself per se, because iron is a mineral, it's a part of the earth, so how could they possibly be afraid of it? It's just a totally different perspective. And there are probably several people in the world, especially in the academic world, that don't agree with me, but I speak from my experience and my personal connection and experience with the fairies. So what I've learned, what I've experienced, has not been from books. And although I love books, obviously, but it's been a personal thing, and it's true for me, and it might not be true for everybody else, but it's certainly true for myself. And also you have, like, you may have heard about fairy horses, which are tiny fairy horses. Well, of course, if there are fairy horses, they're going to need fairy horseshoes, and they are metal, and there will be fairy blacksmiths as well. So you can just, if you look at it even sensibly and rationally, you will see that there are elements of iron within the fairy world and in the earth. So that's something that I just kind of dismiss through my experience. And yeah, I've gone off piste a little bit. I tend to do this when I talk about fairies. I do usually come back to where I'm going. But the thing also about, oh yeah, fairy doors. So the other thing that I say about fairies is that when you're connecting with fairies, it is not an exact science. It's experimental, it's following your heart, following your hunches, and listening, like really listening to what you're receiving from nature, from the energy, from that fairy energy. And sometimes you can get a very definite and strong no. Like, I've been into certain spaces. I was reading a book on ley lines by Hamish Miller and Paul Broadhurst. And in that book was, I can't remember the name of the book. I don't know if it was The Sun and the Serpent, or I can't remember. It was a very long time ago. But in this book, they dowsed all the ley lines across the whole of Europe, from where I live in Penzance, St Michael's Mount, through Glastonbury, right into Europe. And one of the ley lines led and crossed over at a place called Dolmen de la Fise in France. And so myself and a friend decided to visit there, and we set off in a van and we went on the ferry, and this was our little mission, our little journey. And then we arrived, it was kind of starting to get dark, and we drove to this place, and it felt so eerie, really. It didn't feel like, I was expecting like the fairy welcoming party to be there for me, but they weren't. And energetically, and I arrived and I was like, I've come all the way from the UK and this feels doesn't feel right. And we got out the van, and then as we were approaching the Dolmen Stones, I just heard the biggest no. It was like whoosh energetically. And it really threw me. It really shocked me. I'd never really had a strong no like this before. It's always been yes for me. So it was a shock. And I thought, oh, maybe the French fairies don't know me, or, I thought they would have known that I was coming. And, as our egos start to kick in, my ego was like, I've come all this way and you're telling me no. And as I looked at the Dolmen Stone, if you're not familiar with that one, it's like a slab on top of, it's a huge monument. I could literally see all these tiny little green pairs of eyes looking out, loads of them, like, I don't know, maybe 100. I don't know how many, but there were a lot in the stones, and they were all peering at me, and they didn't feel evil. They just felt like they didn't want me there. So I said to my friend, we don't have permission to go in this space. We're going to have to just go away. So we decided that we would drive away from the monument, and we got in the van and we started driving off in the opposite direction for quite a long time. And then we ended up back in the same place. And we don't know how that happened, but we did. And we both looked at each other and thought, this is a little bit weird. Like, we've literally driven for ages and we're in exactly the same space where we started, which was just outside the aura of the Dolmen Stones. I said, come on, let's try again. Let's go in a different direction. And we did it again, and we drove for ages. And again, we somehow must have done a circle. I don't know, but we came back to the same place again. And I said, okay, let's just stop here. We're outside of the space. We're not within that space. So let's just stop here and we'll just sleep for the night and see what happens in the morning. And then we went to sleep. And then about 5 o'clock in the morning, I got woken up by a voice saying, you can come now. It was like that. It was like a very bossy teacher. And I'm not really a morning person. I'm more of a night owl, to be honest. And I heard this voice and I thought, oh, I'm going back to sleep. But I knew that I couldn't ignore that voice. So I woke my friend up and I said, they're saying we can come now. So we both got up and we went there, and the sun was rising, and it just felt completely different. The energy was complete. I know it looks different at nighttime and daytime, but that there was a definite tangible shift in energy. And so we actually went into the Dolmen Stone underneath it, and we spent the whole day there. It was very welcoming, very warm, and it was a really creative energy. And we actually wrote a song about the stone while we was in the stone, which is on one of my fairy albums. I think it's called Through the Fairy Portal. And the song is called Dolmen de la Fise. And all the words, all the music, everything just flowed. And then I meditated and asked them why wasn't I welcome the night before? And they said, in very practical terms, they said, if someone knocks on your door in the middle of the night and you don't know them and you're expecting them to come in, you're not really going to let them in, are you? You're going to suss them out first. You're going to scan them. You're going to check out their energy, because you're not just going to let any random person into your space. And suddenly it just made sense to me. And then I'd also found out that in that particular area, there had been some teenagers, as teenagers do, they were gathering and lighting fires and not really respecting the space. And there was alcohol bottles and things like this. So they were very protective of that sacred space. And the moral of that experience for me was that, first of all, for me, don't be arrogant and just think you're entitled to go everywhere, because there are certain spaces that you can't, and to always ask permission. And to do that, it can be such a simple thing, just to internally say in your mind or out loud, please, may I enter? And then you'll know, you'll get a feeling, you'll either hear, if it depends on how attuned you are, clairvoyantly or telepathically, or you might just get a feeling. Most of us can feel whether things are off or whether it's a yes or a no, and just ask. And I feel like this is where the term pixie led comes from as well. We were definitely pixie led the night before. Like, it was so bizarre. There's a program that used to be played, oh, I don't know if it was the 70s or the 80s, called Tales of the Unexplained. I think that's what it was called. And it really felt like we were in one of those films when we were just driving and driving and driving and coming back to the same place, and no matter what direction. So it was a little bit, challenging to deal with, but I'm really grateful for that experience, because it taught me a very powerful lesson about, I mean, I do respect nature anyway, but about not feeling entitled to just go into any sacred space and to ask permission. So I think I share that in the book. I think I do. Not in that much detail, but I do go on about that, because I think it's a powerful lesson that we can all learn from. I'm sure many of us listening here now have had similar experiences. So
Yeah.
yeah, so when we're opening a fairy door, we're opening it to everything. So that's why I always say start with it in the garden or outside your home. And then that lets the fairies know, it's a physical, tangible sign that the fairies are welcome. You can put a little sign, fairies welcome here, or a little gnome that lets them know that fairies are welcome as well, and honor them. We don't worship them. Like, I do not worship fairies. They're not to be worshipped, they're to be respected as we are, and it's a two-way street. As I said, it's not an exact science either, working with them. They have egos similar to ours, not exactly the same. They have personalities, and mostly they want to befriend us, and the ones that don't will just not. It's simple. It's really, really simple. And it takes patience, or as I like to say, pixie patience, to develop your friendship with the fairies.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you very much for sharing that story, because maybe that's aspects we were not aware of. And yeah, it's there need to be mutual respect. Beautiful. And do we start taking questions from the callers?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. Oh, I talk a lot, don't I?
No, that was great. uh, all right. So yeah, because we have limited time and we have many of you wanted to ask, so please just only one question per person, so we can honor as much of you as we can. So Yvette, can you please unmute yourself? Yvette?
Hi, sorry, I
Hi.
was having a hard time with my phone. Hi, Mansaf, and hi, then. Thank you for taking the call. And for anyone in the US that celebrates Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving. And just wanted to go ahead and see if any fairies have a message. I'm in the process of trying to get benefits for disability, and gathering all the info that I need to submit for the claim, and just wanted to go ahead and see if there's anything that can be shared with that going well for me.
Okay. Hello. I'll just pull I'll pull a card from my pocket fairy-sized Oracle of the Fairies. I was here, well, I think the first time I spoke with you, Monsef, on your show, I had my big size Oracle of the Fairies, and now they've come out in fairy size, so I'm super happy about that.
Thank you, Karen.
Oh, you're very welcome. So I'm just shuffling and seeing what message comes out. It's a very specific request. I'm not sure it's purely the fairies department, but they've certainly jumped out. So it's a fairy reading a book. I don't know if you can see that, okay, and it's finding balance. Okay, and that is about finding balance within the terrain that you are about to navigate, and that there is assistance there for you. There's definitely assistance there for you. It's kind of finding the right channel, the right door, the right avenue that will just make that all flow very easily for you. I will also say that we are, if you're not aware, we are in what is known as Mercury retrograde, which many of us here will be aware of. It's kind of it can be really great, but it can also make communications quite challenging. But it's also a really good time to revisit, review, renew things. So anything with RE on the beginning of it is connected with Mercury retrograde. So they're not going to give me names or phone numbers or practical kind of offices to contact, but what they can do is assist with magically opening avenues for you. So I think also from a magical perspective, which is how I work with the fairies, is to hold that vision in sight. So ultimately, your objective is to receive some assistance, financial assistance. See yourself receiving it and feel how you're going to feel when you receive that. So when you forget the how, just keep hold of the why you need it, why you need this to be in your life. Because when we get embroiled in the how, we can get lost in our mind, and that can create a tension or a stress, which can keep what we want at bay. And that's the opposite of what we want to be doing. So it's about relaxing more into it, seeing yourself, receiving, because you are worthy. We're all worthy to receive whatever we need in this life and more. And just keep visualizing that and hold the energy, the feeling, the joy that you're going to feel when this happens, and just know it. I'm not even going to say believe it, just know it, because belief implies an element of doubt. So have no doubt, you are worthy of receiving this and you will receive it. And just hold that vision, hold the feelings, bring back that joy, especially in moments of doubt. Try and recreate those feelings. And I mean, this seems pretty positive. It just seems like there's a little bit of groundwork to do in the human realm, a bit of studying and a little bit of phone calls, letters, that sort of thing. But I feel like it will happen. I'm not getting a no. I'm just getting hold on to that vision of you receiving what you need. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Karen. Yeah, in the morning, I meditate, do a mantra and prayer on with a pyramid, and then I went up doing numbers for frequency and manifestation of financial abundance. So I do both of those in the morning before really starting my day, and when I come back from work as well.
Yeah,
And so envisioning it and what that would mean for me, for my
yeah,
life going forward.
yeah,
And I did want to say, Karen, because I think it was probably a year ago that you were on Monsef's show. And so you went up mentioning then about some money, coming to me at the time, and I couldn't think of, what that would be other than trading sweat equity with working and overtime hours, and actually had overpaid for insurance And so I went up getting like a refund back then of about $500 that I didn't expect, and you brought that up in
Oh,
that reading. So I
yay.
wanted to say
Oh, that's good
thank
to
you.
know. I don't always get the feedback from the readings, and it's also, I just want to say I love that that happened. So thank you for sharing that. But also, like, and I know this might sound counterintuitive, but we don't need to focus on the money. It's about focusing on the feeling and the things that you can do when you have those resources. So we don't
Okay.
just want to accumulate money for the sake of it, or some people do, but we don't need to do that, because ultimately you want the money to either feel secure or to get a house or to get a car or to get your groceries or whatever it might be. So just visualize the results of that money, and then the fairies, the universe, everything can co-create to bring that in, and always to take practical action. That is super important as well. So fairies are not genies. Like, we don't just give them our wishes and they run off and do them. It is a co-creation. So we could ask the fairies to assist us, and then the inspiration will come, and you'll get these little hunches, these little knowings, these feelings, and to follow those and take co-creative action. And then you're harmonizing with the fairy energy, which is I think what the card was as well, finding balance. So it's finding balance within your own human world, because we have to be practical. We are living in human bodies after all,
Yes.
and we're functioning in a material world, so we do have to be practical about these things. But it's about focusing on the results rather than the means, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And question with the furries, do
So
they
sorry,
have
sorry,
different
Yvette.
skills?
Yvette, sorry, because we need to take questions from others.
Oh, okay.
Only one
Thank you,
question per
Munsta.
person.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I
Thank you.
just say, if you do want to follow up anything with me, anyone, then I'm sure Monsef will give my website at some point, but I will be doing some readings through Monsef as well. So if you check out what the offer is, I don't do readings very often, one-to-ones, but I will be offering them as a part of this show.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And thank you, Munsta.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Karen.
Yvette.
You're
Thank,
welcome.
thank you, Karen. And Annette, you're out. I would love a fairy reading.
Okay. Is this a general? This is a general reading, I'm assuming,
Yes.
for Annette.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm relying on you, Monsef, to tell me when I have to finish, because I'll just go
Okay.
on forever. I'm sure people have got other things to do. And I am really grateful for everyone that's showing up on this live and on the replay. So I've got the Fairy of Solitude, Annette, which tells me that you either are spending a lot of time in solitude, or you could do with spending some more time in solitude, because there might be a lot going on around you. And sometimes we feel like we can't get away, whether it's a work situation, a home situation, family, friends, that sort of thing, where it's almost like your spirit is calling out for that space. And sometimes we have this space, and sometimes people can feel like, I feel lonely being in this solitude. But the solitude is also being in oneness. So you're never, even though you might be physically in solitude, you're still connected to everything. So it's not like a bad thing. Like, I absolutely love my solitude. I love my space. But if you look at my social media, I'm always at my fairy events, at festivals, at events with lots of people, but I always come away back to my own space. I'll go to the beach on my own, and I'll go to the woods on my own, and just really recharge and charge up. So it's actually coming back to the first card that came up, which was finding balance. So, but this applies to you within the solitude. So does any of that resonate for you?
Yeah, she wrote too much solitude. My boss put me on call and I need to go back to work. She means now. So she wrote spot on, Karen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yay.
spot on.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Karen and Annette. And we have Barbara on YouTube. Do my fairies have a message for me?
Oh,
So it's a general one.
let's see, Barbara. Again, I'm working with my pocket-sized Oracle of Fairies deck. And if you are familiar with my readings on Instagram, I do a lot of free general readings. They always just jump out like that one just did. Oh, Barbara, this is a good one. So it is wish wisely. Something that you've been focusing on, something that's been in your heart. Okay, so basically we're not far away from the new moon. Depending on when you're watching this, I think we've got the new moon coming up in a couple of days. The new moon is a great time to start planting your seeds of intention of what you want to bring about, your wishes, hopes, dreams, things that you want to manifest within your own physical world in a practical way. And but also what's coming in with this is that what is in your heart, and it might just not be one thing. Many of us have several things that we're wishing for or wanting to materialize in our world. I'm getting that there could potentially be a person involved in what you are wishing for. And the message coming through is that we must always respect and honor the free will of others. So if, for example, and I'm not saying you are, I would never go kind of too deeply or embarrass anybody in one of these kind of open forums. So remember, this is a general reading, and if it resonates, take it on board. And if it doesn't, let it go. I'm not attached to that at all. I'll just share what I get. So for example, and I'm sure there's many people here that maybe are trying to manifest love in their life in the form of another person coming into their life, and we might have an idea of who we want that to be. Well, for the purpose of wishing and manifesting, respecting the free will of others, when we're visualizing that, wanting to bring in somebody into our lives, is to keep the face blank. So you're not projecting any preconceived ideas or expectations onto that, and you're not interfering with anybody else's free will. I'm not saying that this is what you're doing. I just feel that this is what I need to say, because there will be someone or a few people here that are listening now or on replay that will resonate with. So wish, dream big, like dream bigger, that there's no limit. The only limits on anything is what we impose upon ourselves, our own imagination. There is no limit. So you can wish for whatever, you've always for the highest good of all. That's what I always say. And that includes you, it includes the fairies, it includes everybody around you in your vicinity. Whatever you're wishing for, let it be for the highest good of all. Those kind of wishes will very often come into fruition far faster than if it's like for a selfish reason. I'm not saying yours is selfish. I'm just saying pull on whatever that wish is, bring it to your heart. And then again, like I was explaining earlier, when we're visualizing what we want in the world, is to visualize us having that thing, experiencing it, interacting with it in our minds, imagining it, and then really embracing the feelings that are coming in with that as well. And I hope that resonates for you.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much, Karen. And yeah, also thank you, Barbara, for your question. We'd love to hear your feedback if you can type it on the chat. And yeah, maybe we still have 6 minutes. Can we take maybe one quick reading?
Yeah.
Steve, can you please unmute yourself?
Hi, thanks.
Hi.
I'm just wondering if I can get a reading with the fairies, or if I have any fairy guides regarding the doors you mentioned, with taking practical action with what I need.
Yeah, of course. Did you say the doors?
Yeah, the fairy doors.
Ah, okay. Oh, one nearly flipped out then, but it didn't quite. Oh gosh. Okay. I don't know if you can see that, but the same card has flipped out again, which is wishing wisely. sometimes that happens. Like there's 44 cards in this deck and they all get shuffled and this one wants to come out. So I would say to focus on your objective, like I won't say the final outcome because I don't believe that anything is final. It's a moving process. It's a moving journey. So to focus on what your anticipated, most wished for outcome would be of this particular scenario. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So focusing on what that might be. And then asking, like we can just ask, it doesn't have to be in a grand way, it could just be in your mind, or certainly when you're in a quiet space with no distractions, perhaps during meditation or in a natural environment in the woodland or by the beach or just at home meditating, and then ask, set your intention, set your wish and verbalize that. If you're able to do that, it's always going to be more powerful because that energy then goes out. But even telepathically, mentally, you can just say what it is, what your objective is, and then just simply ask the fairies to come assist you with that. If they wish, because like I said, it's always like on their terms. But just to hold that intention, like I said in the previous one, always for the highest good of all. So if you want to kind of bring that fairy friendship, that fairy connection forward or hasten it, then just say, you know, I would really like this to happen. In my book, I do say, I mean, there's 111 different ways in there that we can connect. So if it is on Audible and it's also on Kindle, and there's is Audible the audio version? I'm not sure, but
Yes.
there's an
Yes.
audio version where I actually I narrate the whole book. And all I would say is don't listen to it while you're in bed, because I did that the other day. I recorded it, I hadn't listened to it, and I thought I'm going to listen to my book. And I woke up in the morning, I put my book on, and then I just like drifted off. Not that my book's boring, but it's like somebody telling you a story. I drifted off, and my dreams were insane. Like, oh my gosh, they were really magical. Like they were full of fairies and all these magical things were happening. So maybe you do want that experience. Maybe you should try and sleep while you're listening to it. But that's a way that you can, because I speak through, there's practical ways, but there are meditations in a lot of the chapters. So when we're reading a meditation, it's harder, more challenging to do the meditation while we're actually reading it. But if you're hearing it, it's easier to go more deeply into it. That's all I'm saying. So that might be a thing to do, but also you have the ability to do it with or without the book. You already have that, and it literally comes from your heart and your intention to want that to happen. Does any of that resonate?
Yeah.
Yay. Thank you.
Thank, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve, and thank you, Karen, for the guidance.
You're very
And
welcome.
yeah, we still have a couple minutes left. I would love if you can tell us about the one-on-one reading session that you are offering, and I will put both links for the one-on-one session and the new book on the chat boxes on Zoom and YouTube. And also they are on YouTube video description and the live events page and the replay page. So yeah, I would love if you can tell us about them.
Yeah, so during the one-on-one session, which it can be conducted over Zoom or telephone if you like. Zoom is better. It's better to have that kind of visual, for me anyway, to have that connection, but it isn't essential. It just helps things to flow a bit easier. And I will go deeper into any questions, because in a kind of open forum like this, it's not really appropriate to go too deep if I'm getting stuff. You might not want all these things shared with lots of people, even though we're all friends here. You might want to keep some things personal. So it's like a very confidential meeting that we have. It lasts for 1 hour, and then I welcome you to bring your questions, anything that you want to be looked at, and then we'll bring in the fairy energy consciously, and then see what unfolds. It's lighthearted. It's a beautiful session, but we do go deep. We can go deep as you want, really. So there, it's not always airy fairy, if that makes sense. We can get to the crux of the matter. We can get solutions. We can get answers. We can get guidance through the sessions. And that's what I offer. And I absolutely love doing it. I just don't always have time to do it. But I've made this time for you, Monsef, and your beautiful people who are watching either now or on replay. And I would love to meet some of you in this way.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Karen. Very grateful to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, for offering the sessions and sharing your time and your guidance with our audience. So yeah, so grateful to you.
Oh, thank you so much. And I'd just like to say, because I know a lovely lady was holding up her book earlier on at the beginning, the Fairy Whispering book. If you do have a copy of my book, can you please leave me a review on Amazon? Because it helps me, but it also helps other people who are wanting to find a connection with the fairies. So it's a great gift as well. It's like a little gift book size, and it would just really help me if you would leave. Hopefully it's a positive review. That would be really great. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for spending your precious time with me on Monsef's amazing show. Thank you for having me again, Monsef. It's been a joy as always. I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Also, it's always a joy for me and the audience to have you with us. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And yeah, again, everyone, you can, for the one-on-one session, you can sign up on the link yourdivineuniqueness.com/Karen, yourdivineuniqueness.com/Karen, Karen. And for the book, you can go to the link karenk.co.uk/fairy-whispering, karenk.co.uk/fairy-whispering. And both links are on the live event page, the replay page, YouTube video description, and the chat boxes. And yeah, for the review, there is Amazon link there if you want to do that. And yeah, so thank you very much again, Karen. Thank you everyone for being here with us today, for sharing this space, this time, your beautiful energies. Thank you for the questions and the comments. And yeah, so with that, I'm sending you so much love, and then we see you on the next call. Bye for now.